The bathroom floor was cold against my cheek, but I barely registered it. All I could feel was the searing ache in my ribs, a dull throb that flared into sharp pain with every shallow breath. I curled tighter, pressing my arm against the bruised flesh, trying to make myself small, invisible. Laura, are you going to stay in there all day? What did you do to make him angry this time? My mother's voice, Lillian, sharp and accusatory, cut through the thin door. It wasn't a question of concern, never was. It was an indictment. I was 35 years old, a grown woman, and still my mother's voice could shrink me back to a terrified child. My name is Laura, and for years my life had been a carefully constructed prison, built by two people who claimed to love me. Before I go on, comment below where in the world you're watching this from. The first time Aaron hit me, it wasn't a punch, it was a shove. I'd spilled coffee on the carpet, a new carpet he just had installed. He'd exploded, a terrifying roar that had me flinching back. He grabbed my arm, spun me around, and shoved me against the wall. My head hit hard. I remember the dizzying stars, the taste of blood in my mouth from biting my tongue. He was instantly apologetic, all wide, remorseful eyes and trembling hands, swearing he'd never do it again. I believed him. I wanted to. He'd been so charming when we first met, a whirlwind of attention and grand gestures. I was 26 then, fresh out of a dead-end relationship, and Aaron, 29, swept me off my feet. He moved in within 3 months talking about our future, our family. He was so attentive, so present. He made me feel seen, something I'd rarely felt growing up with Lillian. She always had a way of making me feel like an inconvenience, a burden. Aaron was different. He made me feel like I was the center of his universe, but that universe started shrinking, slowly, insidiously. First, it was my friends. They're a bad influence, Laura. They don't understand us. Then my job. You don't need to work so hard, baby. I'll take care of everything. He took over the finances, controlled the bills, managed my schedule. He called it protecting me. I called it love. Lillian, of course, approved. He's a good provider, Laura. At least he pays the rent. You could do a lot worse. Those words became my mantra. At least he pays the rent. They echoed in my head every time a door slammed, every time his voice rose, every time his hands became too rough. He was a good provider. He kept a roof over our heads. He was good to Jacob, our son, most of the time. Jacob was 8 now, quiet and sensitive, and I tried to shield him from Aaron's moods, but it was getting harder. The shoves became more frequent. The slaps came next. Always where they wouldn't show, or where I could cover them with clothes. My arms, my back, my ribs. Never my face. He was careful about that. He liked to keep up appearances, and I, like a fool, helped him. I wore long sleeves. I perfected the art of the quick smile, the dismissive shrug when anyone asked if I was okay. Laura, I know you're in there. Aaron's voice now booming from the living room. It was laced with a dangerous edge. Where's the damn rent money? I just checked the account and it's short. $5,000 short. My breath hitched. $5,000. That was the emergency fund I'd been secretly building, a tiny nest egg, a sliver of hope for escape. I'd been siphoning off small amounts from the grocery money, selling old clothes online, anything to squirrel away a few dollars. It was barely enough for a deposit on a cheap apartment, but it was something. It was mine. Then it hit me. Lillian. She'd been over yesterday, fussing, asking about our finances, clucking her tongue about how I needed to keep Aaron happy. She'd been on the phone with him earlier today, whispering. My stomach dropped. Laura, get out here now, Aaron roared. Your mother just called me, said she sent me some money to help out because you've been so difficult. $5,000. What the hell have you been telling her? My ribs screamed in protest as I pushed myself up, leaning heavily against the sink. Lillian, my own mother. She hadn't just sided with him. She'd actively sabotaged me. She'd taken my only way out and handed it to the man who was systematically destroying me. My vision blurred, not from tears, but from a cold, hard rage that was slowly, steadily beginning to burn. The cold rage that had started to burn in my gut didn't dissipate. It simmered, a low, dangerous heat that fueled something new inside me. I didn't scream back at Aaron. I didn't cry. I walked out of the bathroom, my face carefully blank, and watched him pace, red-faced, in the living room. "What did you tell her, Laura?" he demanded, his voice still too loud. "Why would she send me money? Are you trying to make me look bad?" "I didn't tell her anything, Aaron," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "You know how my mother is." Always interfering, he glared, but my lack of reaction seemed to throw him off. He was used to my tears, my apologies, my desperate attempts to placate him. My silence was a new weapon. He grumbled, picked up his phone, and started making calls, probably to Lillian to clarify things. I went to the kitchen, my bruised ribs aching, and started dinner. As I chopped vegetables, my mind raced. $5,000 gone. My escape fund, snatched away by the very woman who should have protected me. That night, after Aaron had finally fallen asleep, his heavy breathing filling the room, I reached for my phone. It was an old model, nothing fancy, but it had a camera. I opened the video recorder, my thumb hovering over the record button. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from a strange mix of terror and resolve. This was it. The line had been crossed. I couldn't just survive anymore. I had to fight. Over the next few weeks, I became a phantom in my own home. I moved through the days, a smile plastered on my face, a polite nod for Aaron, a gentle touch for Jacob. But every night after everyone was asleep, I was awake. I started small. Voice memos recording his angry outbursts, his threats, the subtle ways he undermined me. Then I graduated to video. My phone was always nearby, hidden in a pocket, under a pillow, propped up in a book. I learned to anticipate his moods, to turn on the camera just before the storm broke. It was terrifying, but each recording felt like a tiny chip off the wall of my prison. Each file saved was a piece of my freedom. About a month after the $5,000 incident, I was at the grocery store pushing a cart filled with the usual bland items Aaron approved of when I heard a familiar voice. "Lara, is that really you?" I turned, and there she was, Taylor Hayes, my best friend from childhood. We'd been inseparable until Aaron had slowly, meticulously pulled me away from everyone. Taylor was 36 now, just a year older than me, but she looked vibrant, confident. She was wearing a smart blazer, carrying a designer bag. She looked successful, like she had her life together. "Taylor!" A genuine smile, the first in a long time, broke through my practiced facade. We hugged, a little awkwardly at first, then tighter. "Oh my God, it's been years," she said, pulling back, her eyes scanning my face. "You look different." Her gaze lingered on my arm where a faint bruise was still visible near my elbow, barely covered by my sleeve. I quickly pulled my arm back. We talked for a long time right there in the frozen foods aisle. I told her about Jacob, about my life, carefully omitting the dark parts, but she was sharp. She picked up on the vague answers, the nervous glances, the way I deflected questions about Aaron. "Laura," she said softly, her voice filled with a concern that felt like a foreign language to me now. "Are you okay? Really?" Something in her eyes, a genuine warmth I hadn't seen in so long, broke through my defenses. I found myself whispering, "No, no, I'm not." And then a little more about Aaron's control, the isolation, the way he made me feel. I didn't mention the physical abuse, not yet. I couldn't. But just admitting that much, just saying the words out loud to someone who wasn't judging me, felt like a crack in the concrete wall around my heart. Taylor listened, her expression growing graver with every word. "Laura, this isn't right," she said, her voice firm. "You don't deserve this. No one does." She pulled out her phone. "Give me your number. We're going to talk more, a lot more." Her concern was a tiny spark, a flicker of hope in the suffocating darkness. It reminded me of a time years ago when I had tried to leave. I was 29 then. Jacob was 2. Aaron had slapped me for the first time, an open-handed blow to my face that had left my ear ringing. I'd packed a bag, grabbed Jacob, and gone straight to Lillian's house. I thought she would help me. She was my mother. Instead, she'd taken one look at my tear-streaked face, at the terrified toddler in my arms, and sighed. "Laura, what have you done? You know Aaron gets upset. You must have provoked him." She'd called Aaron, soothing him, telling him I was just emotional. And when I refused to go back, when I insisted I was leaving him, she'd called the police. Not on Aaron, on me. She told them I was having a mental health crisis, that I was unstable and endangering my child. The officers had arrived, bewildered, and after a long, humiliating conversation, I'd been forced to return home with Aaron, defeated, feeling more trapped than ever. Lillian had made sure of it. Now, with Taylor's gentle but firm presence, a different kind of resolve began to form. This time I wouldn't go to Lillian. This time I would be smarter. That evening at dinner, the air was thick with Aaron's unspoken disapproval. He'd been quiet, brooding since I got home. Jacob, sensing the tension, ate his food slowly, carefully. He was a quiet child, always observing. I reached for the juice pitcher, my hand shaken slightly. "Please don't spill the juice again, Mom," Jacob whispered, his eyes wide, fixed on me. "He gets mad." The words hung in the air, a fragile shield between Jacob and the storm. "Please don't spill the juice again, Mom. He gets mad." Aaron didn't react immediately. He just stared at his plate, chewing slowly. But the air in the dining room grew heavy, suffocating. I felt Jacob's small hand tremble as he picked up his fork. My own hand, reaching for the juice pitcher, froze. I put it down, carefully. The rest of dinner passed in silence, punctuated only by the clink of silverware. Aaron finished first, pushed back his chair, and left the room without a word. Jacob let out a tiny, almost imperceptible sigh of relief. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there, listening to Aaron's heavy breathing from his side of the bed. Jacob's whisper replayed in my mind. "He gets mad." I'd seen Aaron angry countless times, but Jacob's fear, that quiet plea, was a fresh wound. The next morning was a Saturday. Aaron had plans to take Jacob to the park, then to his cousin Miguel's house. I watched them leave, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. Jacob, usually excited for outings, looked subdued. He gave me a quick, anxious hug before getting into the car. They were gone for hours. The house felt unnaturally quiet without Jacob's presence, without the constant low hum of Aaron's moods. I cleaned, I tried to read, but my mind kept drifting to Jacob. It was late afternoon when Aaron dropped him off. Jacob walked in, head down, clutching his worn teddy bear. Aaron gave me a curt nod, muttered something about Jacob being difficult, and left quickly, probably heading back to Miguel's or wherever he spent his free time. "Hey, buddy," I said, kneeling down, trying to meet Jacob's eyes. "Did you have fun?" He just shook his head, his lower lip trembling. I spilled the juice, Mom." My heart squeezed. "Oh, honey, it's okay." Accidents happen." "He got mad," Jacob whispered, his voice barely audible. He pulled away from me, turning his back. "It was just a little bit." That's when I saw it. A dark, angry red welt, a thick line stretching across his small back, just above his waistband. It looked like it had been made by a belt or something similar. My breath caught in my throat. My vision narrowed. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even gasp. A strange, almost serene calm settled over me. My lips, unbidden, curved into a slow, terrifying smile. It wasn't a smile of joy or even relief. It was the smile of a predator, of someone who had just found their purpose. This was it. This was the line. He had touched my son, and now I was going to burn his world to the ground. That night, the transformation was complete. The victim was gone. In her place was a strategist, cold and clear-eyed. I pulled out my phone, not to record, but to dial. "Taylor, it's Laura. I need your help." All of it. Taylor was at my door within an hour, a bottle of wine and a look of fierce determination on her face. I didn't hold back this time. I told her everything, the shoves, the slaps, the financial control, Lillian's betrayal, the $5,000. And then I pulled up Jacob's shirt, showing her the welt. Taylor's face went from concerned to horrified to absolutely furious. She didn't say anything for a long moment, just stared at the bruise, then at me. "Laura," she finally said, her voice tight with suppressed rage, "why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I couldn't," I whispered, the words feeling alien now that the fear was gone, replaced by a chilling resolve. "I was so scared, and I didn't know how. But now I know I have to, for Jacob." "Damn right you do," she said, her eyes blazing. "And we're not just getting you out, Lara. We're taking him down. Everything he has, every last thing." She pulled out her phone. "I know just the person. She's a bulldog. You're going to need more than courage to take this asshole down. You're going to need a lawyer who eats men like Aaron for breakfast." The next morning, a Sunday, Taylor brought Brooklyn Fisher to my house. Brooklyn was 34, sharp, with a no-nonsense demeanor and eyes that missed nothing. She was a lawyer, and Taylor, being a paralegal, vouched for her implicitly. We sat at my kitchen table, Jacob safely at a friend's house, and I laid out everything. The recordings, the financial control, Jacob's bruise. Brooklyn listened, taking notes, her expression unreadable. "This is good," Brooklyn said, tapping her pen on her legal pad. "The recordings are crucial. The child abuse is the game changer. We need more, though. We need to show a pattern, establish your financial independence, and tie up every loose end." She gave me a list. "First, you need a secret bank account, online, no paper trail to this address. Start funneling any money you can get into it, small amounts. Next, we need to know everything about his finances, his habits, where he goes, who he talks to, anything that could give us leverage." That afternoon, while Aaron was out, I put Brooklyn's words into action. I opened an online-only savings account, using a P.O. box address I'd rented discreetly. It felt like a tiny act of rebellion, a whisper of freedom. Then, heart-pounding, I found the small, discreet listening device Brooklyn had given Taylor, no bigger than a thumb drive. I waited until Aaron's car was parked in the driveway, his keys on the hook by the door. My hands were steady as I slipped out, opened the passenger door, and following Brooklyn's instructions, tucked the tiny bug deep under the dashboard, securing it with a piece of tape. It was almost invisible. I closed the car door, walked back inside, and locked the door behind me. My breath hitched, but it wasn't from fear. It was from a surge of adrenaline, a chilling thrill. The game had begun. The tiny bug in Aaron's car was a revelation. It broadcast his life, unfiltered, directly into my phone. I'd bought a burner phone, cheap and untraceable, just for this. Every night after Aaron was asleep and Jacob was tucked into bed, I'd plug in my headphones and listen. It was sickening, but also empowering. I heard him talking to other women, not just one, but several. His smooth, charming voice, the same one he'd used to reel me in, now spun lies and promises to strangers. I heard him brag about his conquests, about how easy it was to manipulate women. I recorded every call, every hushed conversation, every casual mention of names and places. This wasn't just about extramarital affairs, it was about his character, his complete disregard for anyone but himself. One night, I heard him talking to someone about a score and getting rid of the evidence. He mentioned a stash in the garage, just in case. My blood ran cold. Weapons, drugs. I'd always suspected, seen the occasional suspicious package, the way his eyes would get too bright, too manic. But now I had confirmation. A few days later, Aaron was out late, supposedly at Miguel's. I waited until I was sure he wouldn't be back for hours. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my hands were steady. I went to the garage, a place Aaron usually kept locked, but he'd been careless, leaving a spare key under a loose brick. Inside, tucked away in a dusty toolbox behind some old paint cans, I found it. A small, unregistered handgun, and beneath it a Ziploc bag containing a white, powdery substance and a few small, clear baggies. Cocaine. My stomach churned, but I didn't hesitate. I snapped photos with my burner phone, time-stamped and clear. Then I put everything back exactly as I found it. The evidence was piling up. While I was meticulously gathering his dirty secrets, I was also building my own foundation. Taylor had connected me with Connor Rose, a former colleague of hers who worked in remote tech support. Connor was a quiet guy but incredibly helpful. He understood my need for discretion and helped me set up a legitimate remote job, working late nights after Jacob was asleep. It was entry level, but it was mine. It meant I was earning money that Aaron couldn't touch, couldn't even know about. Connor helped me create a paper trail of my self-sufficiency, routing my paychecks to my new secret bank account, ensuring no mail came to the house. It was exhausting, often sleeping only a few hours a night, but every dollar earned felt like a brick in my escape tunnel. My mental health was a priority, too. Brooklyn had stressed the importance of appearing stable and proactive. She also gave me the name of Saijay Price, a social worker who specialized in family support and child advocacy. Saijay wasn't officially involved with Jacob's case yet, but she offered discreet online sessions for parents navigating difficult domestic situations. I started meeting with Saijay twice a week via video call, usually from my car parked miles away or late at night in the bathroom with the fan on. Saijay was calm, empathetic, and incredibly insightful. She helped me articulate the gaslighting, the emotional abuse, the constant fear. She also helped me strategize how to present myself as a stable, protective parent. Document everything, Laura, she advised. Your efforts to create a safe environment for Jacob, your financial planning, your engagement with his school. Every positive step you take strengthens your case. I started a detailed journal logging Jacob's activities, my interactions with his teachers, even simple things like reading to him every night. I made sure to take him to all his doctor's appointments, keeping meticulous records. I was building a narrative not just for the courts, but for myself. I was a good mother. I was fighting for my son. The weight of it all was immense, but the rage fueled me. I was no longer just surviving, I was preparing for war. Iran, meanwhile, was oblivious. He still saw me as the same timid, compliant wife. He was getting bolder, more careless, convinced he had me trapped. One evening I was in the kitchen pretending to clean up after dinner while Aaron was on the phone in the living room. Jacob was already in bed. The car bug was off, but Aaron's voice carried clearly. No, no, she won't try anything, he was saying, his voice low but arrogant. She knows better. Besides, I've got her cornered. If she ever tries to leave again, I'll make sure no judge gives her that kid. She'll lose everything, including Jacob. The words hit me like a physical blow, colder than any bruise. He wasn't just trying to control me, he was threatening Jacob. He was going to use my son as a weapon. My hands clenched around the dish towel. The last vestiges of fear evaporated, replaced by an absolute, unshakable certainty. He had no idea what was coming. The Saturday dawned, not with a gentle sunrise, but with a cold, clear light that felt surgical. I was up before the alarm, dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, my heart a steady drumbeat in my chest. This was it, the day everything changed, the day I stopped being a victim. At 6 a.m. sharp, Taylor's car pulled into the driveway. She gave a quick, almost imperceptible nod from behind the wheel. Jacob, still sleepy, was already dressed in the clothes I'd laid out for him. "Hey, buddy," I said, kneeling down, trying to keep my voice light. "Auntie Taylor's here to take you on a special adventure today. You're going to get to spend the whole day with her, maybe even stay over tonight." Jacob's eyes widened slightly. He loved Taylor. "Really? All day?" "All day," I confirmed, pulling him into a tight hug. I whispered into his hair, "Be brave, my sweet boy. Everything's going to be okay." He hugged me back, then trotted out to Taylor's car. I watched them drive away, Jacob waving from the back seat, until the car disappeared around the corner. The house felt eerily quiet, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with purpose. The moment Taylor's car was out of sight, my phone vibrated. A text from Brooklyn. "Motions filed. Judges signed off. Go time." My first move was the joint bank account. Aaron had always controlled it, but I had access to the online portal. Over the past few weeks, I'd been quietly transferring small amounts into my secret account. Now, with a few clicks, I initiated a wire transfer for the bulk of the remaining funds. Not everything, just enough to leave him high and dry, but not so much that it would immediately flag as suspicious until it was too late. It would take a few hours to clear, but the wheels were in motion. Next, the utilities. Aaron had set up most of them, but I had gathered the account numbers and passwords from his messy desk over the past month. I called the electric company, the water company, the internet provider. "I need to cancel service," I stated, my voice firm. "We're moving." Yes, effective immediately." They tried to transfer me, to offer incentives, but I was relentless. "No, thank you. Just cancel." Within an hour, his power, water, and internet were scheduled to be cut off by noon. He wouldn't even know until he tried to turn on a light or check his phone. The lease was trickier, but Brooklyn had a plan. Months ago, when we'd renewed the lease on the house, Aaron had forged my signature on the updated agreement. He thought he was being clever, ensuring I couldn't leave without his consent. What he didn't know was that I had found the original document, the one with my real signature and a copy of the forged one. Brooklyn had used this to file a complaint of fraud with the landlord, and more importantly, with the housing authority. She'd already notified them that I was terminating the lease due to fraudulent activity and that I would be vacating the premises immediately, effective that morning. The landlord, facing potential legal trouble for a forged document, was surprisingly cooperative. They just wanted to avoid a lawsuit. The electronic trail was undeniable. I moved through the house with a chilling efficiency, gathering only what Jacob and I absolutely needed: A few changes of clothes, important documents I'd already copied and stored, Jacob's favorite books and toys. I left everything else. The furniture, the appliances, the memories of a life that was never truly mine. It would all be part of the wreckage. Around 9 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Brooklyn. They're at his office now. Social worker C.J. Price and 2 officers. They have the restraining order and the child abuse report. It's happening. I pictured it. Aaron in his polished office, his smug smile, his air of untouchable authority. And then the knock on the door, the uniforms, Sagey's calm, professional demeanor, the look on his face as the papers were served, the public humiliation he so carefully avoided. A grim satisfaction spread through me. The silence in the house was deafening, yet it felt like the loudest thing I'd ever heard. The air was lighter, cleaner. I walked through the empty rooms, the ones I'd felt trapped in for so long, and felt nothing but a profound sense of release. Just as I was about to walk out the door for good, my phone rang. It was Aaron. His picture flashed on the screen, a photo from years ago before the charming facade had cracked. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the answer button. He called again and again. The phone vibrated relentlessly in my hand. I didn't answer. I let it ring, listening to the frantic, desperate sound of it. He was probably already reeling, his world imploding around him. This was the first time in years I'd let his call go to voicemail. I imagined his face, red with fury, then confusion, then desperation. The thought brought a chilling smile to my lips. He was finally losing control, and I was finally free. I sat on Taylor's couch, a mug of lukewarm tea in my hands, the silence of her apartment a stark contrast to the chaos I'd just unleashed. Jacob was with Taylor's sister, happily distracted by cartoons and a new toy. My phone, the burner, was buzzing relentlessly in my pocket. Aaron still calling, still leaving voicemails, each one more frantic than the last. Taylor walked in, her face grim but determined. Brooklyn just called. Updates. I set the tea down. Lay it on me. His car was repossessed, she said, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. He tried to pay for gas with a card that was declined. The bank had already frozen the joint account after your transfer went through. The finance company had a tracker on the car, and they were already looking for it because he was behind on payments. They swooped in. A small, grim smile touched my lips. Good. And the police, Taylor continued. They followed up on the lead about that woman, Sarah, the one you mentioned he assaulted years ago. Sarah was a name I'd heard Aaron brag about once, a casual mention of a crazy ex who deserved what she got. I'd given Brooklyn the name, a shot in the dark, hoping she could find something. Turns out Sarah had filed a report back then, but it was dismissed. With your new evidence and Saji's report, they've reopened the case. Charges are piling up, Laura. Domestic violence, child endangerment, assault. My breath hitched. Sarah, another ghost I could finally lay to rest. What about the weapons? That's where it gets interesting, Taylor said, a slight smirk. Aaron's cousin, Miguel Bailey. The police went to question him. Apparently, Aaron called Miguel in a panic, trying to get him to clean up some things at the house. Miguel, bless his idiot heart, tried to deny knowing anything about the weapons you photographed. But then, when pressed, he accidentally confirmed there were other weapons, not just the one you reported, hidden in a storage unit Aaron rented under a fake name. He was trying to protect Aaron, but he just dug him a deeper hole. They've got a warrant for the storage unit now. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from a chilling sense of triumph. Every loose thread, every dark secret was unraveling. The burner phone in my pocket vibrated again. This time it wasn't Aaron. It was Lillian. I let it ring, and ring and ring. She called 5 times in a row before stopping. I knew she'd be frantic. Her golden boy, her perfect errand was crumbling. About an hour later, there was a pounding on Taylor's apartment door, not a polite knock, but a desperate, furious hammering. Taylor looked at me, her eyebrows raised. I nodded. It's her? Taylor opened the door, and Lillian stood there, disheveled, her face blotchy and red. Her eyes, usually so cold, were wide with panic. She pushed past Taylor, her gaze locking onto me. "Laura, what have you done?" she shrieked, her voice shrill. "Aaron just called me. He said the police were at his office. They took his car. He can't get into the bank. What is going on? You have to fix this." I stood up slowly, my gaze unwavering. "Fix what, Mother?" "This mess. This absolute disaster. He's the father of your child. How could you do this to him? To us? He's a good man. He provides for you. You're ruining his life." She gestured wildly, her voice rising to a hysterical pitch. "You always do this, Laura. You always cause trouble. You must have provoked him. You always provoke men." A cold, hard laugh escaped my lips. It wasn't a pretty sound. "Provoke him? You want to know what I provoked, Lillian? I provoked him into showing his true colors. I provoked him into hitting my son, into threatening to take Jacob away from me. I provoked him into finally facing the consequences of his actions." Her face twisted. "You're lying. Aaron would never—" "He did," I cut her off, my voice dangerously low, each word a carefully aimed dart. "He did, and you know what else he did. He took the $5,000 you gave him. The money you gave him to make things right. The money you gave him while I was bleeding, while he was systematically destroying me. You enabled him. You funded him. You chose him over your own daughter, over your own grandson." Lillian recoiled as if I'd slapped her. "I was helping. I was trying to keep your family together." "No," I said, stepping closer, my voice a whisper that carried more weight than any shout. "You were trying to keep him happy. You were trying to maintain your illusion of a perfect family, no matter the cost to me. You told me to stay silent. You told me to suffer. You told me my worth was tied to keeping a man, any man, happy. You gave him money while I bled. Tell him to be grateful." Her face crumpled. The bravado drained out of her, replaced by a raw, pathetic desperation. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. She swayed, her eyes wide and unfocused. "You reap what you sow, Mother," I said, my voice devoid of warmth, "and you sowed a field of poison." Lillian's eyes rolled back. She let out a choked gasp, a strange gurgling sound, and then with a soft thud she collapsed onto the hallway floor, a heap of expensive clothes and shattered illusions. I looked down at her, my mother, lying unconscious at my feet. For a moment, a flicker of something, perhaps pity, perhaps a ghost of the little girl who just wanted her mother's love, stirred within me, but it was quickly extinguished. She had made her choices, and so had I. I looked at Taylor, who stood frozen, her hand still on the doorknob. "Call 911, I said, my voice steady. "Tell them there's a woman who collapsed outside our door, and then close it." Taylor, her face pale but resolute, made the call. She relayed the address, described Lillian's symptoms, and then, as instructed, closed the door. The sound of the ambulance siren grew louder, then faded. I didn't look out the window. I didn't need to. Lillian was no longer my problem. The next few days were a blur of legal proceedings and media frenzy. Aaron's arrest was swift. The police, armed with my recordings, the photos of the hidden gun and drugs, Miguel's unwitting confession about the storage unit, and Sarah's reopened case, had more than enough to act. He was charged with prior domestic violence, child abuse, and child endangerment. The discovery of the additional weapons in the storage unit added illegal possession charges to the growing list. He was denied bail. Lillian's involvement didn't go unnoticed. The $5,000 she'd wired to Aaron, coupled with her past history of interfering with my attempts to leave, raised red flags. As part of the investigation into Aaron's finances, those fraudulent deposits from Lillian were scrutinized. It turned out she had been funneling money to Aaron for years, not just the $5,000, but other sums, often untraceable cash payments to help him maintain his lifestyle and control over me. The authorities discovered some of this money was linked to questionable sources on Lillian's side, old business dealings that were now under review. Her financial support was seized as part of the investigation, her assets frozen. The social ruin she'd always feared was now a very public reality. Her carefully constructed facade of respectability crumbled. Amidst the legal chaos, a quiet, unexpected warmth began to bloom. Taylor and Brooklyn, who had been all business and legal strategy, started to show a different side. I noticed the glances between them, the way Brooklyn's voice softened when she talked to Taylor, the easy laughter they shared. One evening, after a particularly grueling meeting with Saja Price about Jacob's custody arrangements, Taylor and I were unwinding at her apartment. Brooklyn joined us later, bringing takeout. "You know," Taylor said, a little hesitantly, "Brooklyn and we've been seeing each other." She blushed, a rare sight on her usually composed face. My eyebrows rose in surprise, then a genuine smile spread across my face. "Really? That's wonderful." Brooklyn, usually so stoic, actually looked a little shy. "It just happened? We spent so much time together working on your case, and—" She trailed off, looking at Taylor, who smiled back, a soft, tender look I hadn't seen on either of them before. It was a small thing, a subplot of romance unfolding amidst the wreckage of my life, but it felt like a balm. Healing wasn't just about Aaron's downfall, it was about finding connection, finding community. Taylor and Brooklyn, forged in the fire of my revenge, were becoming a new kind of family. A few weeks later, after Aaron's preliminary hearing, Lillian showed up at Taylor's apartment again. She looked gaunt, her clothes rumpled, a shadow of her former self. Her voice was thin, pleading. "Laura, please," she begged, her eyes red-rimmed. "I have nowhere to go. My accounts are frozen. They're investigating everything. I need to move back in with you, just until this blows over." I looked at her, then at Jacob, who was playing quietly in the corner, oblivious. My son, the reason I had fought, the reason I had finally broken free. "No," I said, my voice calm, unwavering. "You can't. This isn't your home anymore. It hasn't been for a very long time." "But I'm your mother," she cried, desperation making her voice crack. "And Jacob needs his grandmother. I can help with him." "You taught me to stay silent, Mother," I said, my voice slow and deliberate, echoing the words I'd used to Aaron. "You taught me to accept abuse, to prioritize a man's comfort over my own safety. You taught me to be a victim, but I'm teaching my son the opposite. I'm teaching him that his voice matters. I'm teaching him that he deserves to be safe, and you, Lillian, are not part of that lesson." Her face went slack. The last shred of hope drained from her eyes. She tried one more time, a desperate, pathetic attempt to regain control. A few days later, I got a call from Jacob's school. "Ms. Garrett," the principal's voice was strained, "your mother, Lillian Garrett, just tried to pick up Jacob. She claimed she was collecting her grandson and that you had given her permission. We, of course, did not release him. She became quite agitated. We've had to escort her off the property, and we filed a report." My blood ran cold. She was still trying to manipulate, still trying to use Jacob. "Thank you," I said, my voice tight. "Thank you for protecting him." The call solidified it. There would be no reconciliation, no second chances. Lillian had made her bed, and now she would lie in it, alone. My mother, the ghost of my past, was finally gone. The quiet hum of the washing machine was the loudest sound in the apartment. It was a mundane noise, but to me it was the sound of peace. 6 months had passed since that chaotic Saturday morning, 6 months since I walked out of that house, leaving Aaron's world to implode behind me. Life had settled into a rhythm I hadn't known was possible. Jacob, my brave, resilient Jacob, was thriving. He still had his moments, quiet and watchful, but the fear that had once clouded his eyes was slowly fading. His therapist, a kind woman C.J. Price had recommended, confirmed it during our last session. "His night terrors have all but stopped, Lara," she told me, her voice soft. "He's starting to open up, to trust again. He's a remarkable child." Hearing that, seeing Jacob laugh freely, truly laugh, was a reward beyond anything I could have imagined. He was 8, still small for his age, but growing stronger every day. We were living in a small, bright apartment now, just Jacob and me. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours, paid for by my remote job that Connor had helped me secure, and the small portion of the joint account I'd managed to salvage. Taylor and Brooklyn had been instrumental in helping me find it, navigate the paperwork, and even move in. They were more than friends. They were family now. Most evenings we'd have dinner together. Taylor, Brooklyn, Jacob, and me. Tonight was no different. Taylor was telling a hilarious story about a particularly difficult client, and Brooklyn, usually so composed, kept dissolving into giggles, leaning into Taylor's side. Their relationship had deepened, a quiet, steady flame that brought warmth to our little circle. It was easy, comfortable, filled with an unspoken understanding. We had all been through the fire, and we had emerged together. "Mom, can I have more pasta?" Jacob asked, his mouth full, his eyes bright. "Of course, sweetie," I said, reaching for the bowl. The simple act, the simple request, filled me with a profound sense of gratitude. No tension, no fear, just a happy child asking for more food. Aaron was a ghost now, a name whispered in legal documents. He was institutionalized, deemed a flight risk, and a danger to himself and others, awaiting trial. The charges against him were extensive: domestic violence, child abuse, illegal possession of weapons, fraud. Brooklyn was confident. "He'll be doing serious time, Laura," she'd assured me. "The evidence is overwhelming. He won't see the light of day for a very long time." Jail loomed a dark, inescapable shadow over his future. Lillian, my mother, had vanished from my life entirely. Her financial ruin was complete. The investigation into her questionable dealings had revealed a web of deceit that led to her assets being frozen and her reputation destroyed. She was living with a distant cousin, stripped of her carefully curated image, her influence, her power. After her attempt to take Jacob from school, I filed a formal no-contact order. The silence from her was absolute. It wasn't a victory I celebrated, but it was a necessary peace. A few days later, I sat in C.J. Price's office, the same social worker who had helped me so much. She was also a licensed therapist, and I continued our sessions. "How are you feeling, Laura?" she asked, her voice gentle. I paused, looking out the window at the vibrant green leaves on the trees, a color I felt I was truly seeing for the first time. "I'm different," I said, a small smile playing on my lips. For so long my world felt like it was in black and white. Or maybe just shades of gray. All the noise, the fear, the constant walking on eggshells, it muted everything. I took a deep breath, the air feeling clean and crisp in my lungs. Now, I continued, I dream in color, Sage, vivid, bright colors. And when I wake up, the world outside my window is just as vibrant. The quiet is no longer terrifying. It's a relief. She nodded, a warm, understanding smile on her face. You've done an incredible job, Lara. You reclaimed your life. And Jacob's. I did, I agreed, a fierce pride swelling in my chest. The world finally turned quiet and I didn't miss the noise. He looked at me like he owned me. Now he can do it through bulletproof glass.